All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Office 365 Pulse. We've got everybody back in the crew today. So, we're going to talk about our updates. We really don't have too many major updates. Not surprising, guys. If you guys notice, whenever we're around major conferences, things slow down. So, there's not any Microsoft major conferences, but the Gartner conference is in London this week, and AIM is coming up in Seattle in a couple of weeks. So I think we're going to see the roadmap slow down. There's a lot of repeats in the roadmap right now. So I think we've got a couple of months of, just the calm before the storm, because we're going to hit Ignite and then it's going to be crazy town. So we'll kind of go through quickly. We're going to hit highlights. Again, we're probably not going to go through everyone one by one. We'll get this posted, and in the comments of the YouTube link and where we put it on LinkedIn, I will put a PDF with all the updates so you can read through it as well. So Tom or Adam, why don't you guys start us off with in development? Go for it, Tom.
I want to start because there's not
Go
a whole
for it.
lot I'm going to be able to speak to this week.
Go for it. Go for it.
One of the few things in development that actually hits my world, which is primarily SharePoint, is that the SharePoint start page is getting a user interface refresh.
I'm
Now
excited about this one.
yeah, and this isn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you probably have more inside information than I do. This isn't your SharePoint homepages on your different sites. This is when you're logged into Office 365 and you hit the SharePoint waffle, and it kind of takes you to your SharePoint homepage with links to other sites and stuff like that.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good. They're going to be adding what they call new experiences to help people discover and get back to their content. I think that's good. I don't know that a lot of people start there with a lot of their SharePoint navigation. A lot of them just click on the link and go directly into what they want. But I think making that be more of a homepage destination for all things SharePoint for you, I think is a good thing. And if they're additionally adding features that allow you to find information, discover information, get back to things that you've done in the past, that's a good thing. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Cool. One that I see that's on here is the addition of new file types to the default block list. And this is going to be an exchange. So it's going to make it so that specific list attachment file types cannot be opened in the client or on the web. And so that's going to add it to the default list. That's only interesting. They're not telling us what the new file types are yet. So that's just something to watch for. I'm assuming it's a security thing. There's probably a really good reason that they're doing it. In most cases, this isn't going to impact anybody negatively, but it's something that you want to watch, because if you're one of those outlier use cases that's using that and all of a sudden people are saying I can't open my files, it might be because this has gone from in development to launched and you might need to go make some changes. So we'll keep watching that, and once we know what those actual file types are, that would be a helpful piece of information there. But I'm sure by the time it moves to the next category, they'll at least tell us what file types they're doing.
We would hope so.
I'm gonna assume. All right. How about you, Adam? Anything interesting in development that you're seeing this week?
Yeah, so I actually have three.
All right. I think probably take us through the rest of the list.
Yeah, well, so I think this is a replication, or a representation, as Jen said, that AIM's coming up. So you're actually starting to see a lot of mail-centric or messaging-centric ones, which you guys have probably known if you've watched the show is kind of my baseline. So I'm going to go over the first two fairly quickly because they're small and easy to understand. But the third one I want to talk a little bit about. So first and foremost, they're basically improving it so when you make changes to Exchange settings and Exchange Online, it replicates to Azure AD quicker. This is just cool for anyone who's gone through and had to manually change stuff or even change stuff through PowerShell. You make the change and it could be like an hour before it actually show up in Azure AD. So basically they're doing it so it's basically going to be more or less immediate or instantaneous, which brings it in line with some of the other services that you have in 365. And it's just a quality of life improvement that I'm sure everyone will like. Secondly, they're actually doing an update to the end user notifications that go in about quarantines and alert messages that happen. This is great. As they've been building out the security and compliance center and some of the stuff there, they've improved the end user experience related to quarantines. You may not have quarantines in your org. It's basically a conscientious decision that your tenant admin has to make. But if you choose to use quarantines rather than just deleting the messages or sending them to your junk folder, there's actually this quarantine that Office 365 365 can manage. Previously, tenant admins had to manage it, but they've added stuff to make it easier for an end user to do it in the security and compliance center. And they're basically updating the messaging, so the email that you receive letting you know you have a message in quarantine, they're going to be clear if it's actually a malicious message. You'd have something where you say, oh, you had a message in quarantine, and you have, some user who didn't know what they were doing go in and click on the message and then download a virus or something like that. So they're going to be a little bit clear if it actually is a malicious message, and some of the stuff there is cool. And the final one I actually think is really cool, but it's not the easiest to understand at the first. When you go through and you look at how Exchange works, for the longest time, you've had a recipient limit of 500 users internally. So if I wanted to go and send an email message, the most I could send it to would be 500 users. This was kind of annoying, especially if you're a large organization, because if you wanted to send out like a newsletter, you literally had to have batches that you sent out. So you'd say, okay, I'm going to send to this 500, then I wait and send to this 500, then I'm going to wait and send to this 500, so on and so forth. This was also a tenant-wide setting, so that everyone had it. So for a long time, people have been asking to change this. And for some people, it's to make it bigger because, hey, I want to send a newsletter out. And for some people, it's to make it smaller. It's kind of a security risk. If Joe Schmo's account gets compromised, I don't want them to send a phishing email to 500 other users to try to compromise them even more. So not only are they making it so that you can edit this setting, so if you wanted to bring it lower to like 50 or so, you could, or if you wanted to increase it, say up to 750 to capture all your users, you could. But the thing that I love about this is they're making it customizable per user. So not only do you go through and be able to make this change for a tenant, but you can say, oh, okay, well, there's a reason for these HR people to be able to send to up to 1,000 users. There's reason for, this, marketing person to be able to send out the new product SKUs to someone. But random developer guy, there's no reason he should be sending to more than 50 people, so I'm going to cap him there. The fact that they give you this customization to me is a huge step up in security, and it's going to be bringing in a benefit that people have been asking for a long time. So I think this is really cool. I was not expecting them, even if they did increase this, to do it at a per user basis. So I think it's awesome. I think, again, it's kind of moving towards some of the stuff that's going to be going on with AIM, and just, yeah, as someone who's worked in this world for so long, this is an awesome update and really, really cool to see.
And actually, Jen, if I can go ahead and mention
Yeah.
the last one on the list, because I think it's kind of interesting too, is for Outlook on the web, they're going to have new search suggestions. So when you go to, search for a keyword or something like that, instead of it just saying, okay, here's your emails, it's actually going to be showing you relevant people, emails, and files that contain the keywords.
Which is helpful.
You're really helpful, yeah. So it's going to give you a much more rich experience in your search, much like you see in a lot of the other Office 365 clients, such as Word, Excel, things like that. So keep an eye open for that one in Outlook on the web. I think you're going to like being able to see and find more information without having to be a search wizard in the process.
Yeah, I love it. Well, cool. In rolling out, I'm going to take one, which is the Microsoft Teams, the secondary ringer. I'm glad that is finally rolling out. I don't know if you guys have had the experience when you're on a Teams call and you get another call coming in and what that actually does to your Teams experience. It's not a fun thing. Or if you have multiple devices hooked up to your headset and then another call comes in, it really doesn't create a nice experience. And so I'm really excited to see what happens with the secondary thing, so that if I'm on this Teams call and my phone rings and it's actually connected to my headset still, that I don't get disconnected from this call because that guy's ringing. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen here. So hopefully as that rolls out and that starts to launch, it's just a better experience. I think it can only get better. So I'm excited about that one starting to roll out. So that's kind of exciting there. How about you guys? What else is, some of these are things that we've already kind of talked through, but Adam wasn't here, but I'm sure he's going to be like, woohoo, I love these. But go ahead,
Well,
who's got some exciting ones?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and talk first, and he can stop me like within 3 words if he wanted to take it. Manual sensitivity labeling. You want that one, Adam?
Well, I think that one's really cool. You can talk about it for sure. But
Okay.
I had to live in this for a document I created for one of our clients. It was like 60 pages long, and I talked about this in the document. So seeing it on the roadmap is really cool.
Go for it then. I mean, you are far more qualified to talk about it than I am. Go for it.
So if you have AIP, or they're now calling it Microsoft Information Protection, you can go in and create sensitivity labels. And this is custom labels you've created to say, hey, this is confidential. So say Tom and I work at a bank, and we have this bank sensitive information we don't want out, we can go and say like Adam and Tom's bank sensitive, don't share. And then this is a label that our employees or we can go in and classify documents. If you wanted to do this in the desktop applications up until basically now, you had to download an add-in. So you had to go in and download an add-in that would plug into your desktop suite, or you'd have to go in and deploy it through a group policy to users and train them how to use it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This has existed in the online version for a little bit of time, and they've always said eventually they're bringing it up to speed where the desktop applications will have this by default. Well, this is what the announcement is they're rolling it out so the default applications are going to have the ability to go in and apply these manual labels, which is awesome because having to manage an add-in and update an add-in and do it through group policy for users was honestly a barrier of entry for people to use this feature. So the fact that this is now going to be default functionality, both inside of the Office suite as well as in Outlook, is just really cool and really awesome.
That's awesome.
I could have done a much better job, but I'll let you have your
I had one more I saw that I liked. Do you guys want to talk about the global reader role? I thought that was pretty cool.
No, go for it.
So basically, Microsoft is releasing a new permission, a new global permission, which they don't do this very often, but I thought it was kind of cool. They're basically making what they call an Azure Active Directory global reader, and all the global reader is they can see everything in the same way a global admin can, but they can't make changes. But I think this is really cool for like the world that like me and Jen live in, where we are partners and we're going through and doing stuff. So sometimes I talk to a customer and they want me to review settings on their account or something like that, and really the only way they could do that where I did something that was would let me see what I wanted was to give me global admin, which, like, don't get me wrong, I am trustworthy, but I can definitely see how it'd be a little disconcerting that you basically have to give the keys to the kingdom to a person you're just starting to work with. So the fact that they now have this global reader role, all it really is it can see literally everything a global admin can see. It just can't actually edit any of those settings. I think it's actually pretty cool. And again, for my world as a partner, I can definitely see where there's going to be some value for this.
Yep.
And just so I say something during the rolling out section, there's two additional items on here, both of which we've talked about in the past, so I won't go into any detail. One is the ability to create templates in the Microsoft Admin Center for creating new users. So instead of, if everybody's the same, it's not that big of a deal. But if you've got, I think Jen had done the example of, I have a developer or an engineer that needs these particular sets of permissions or whatever, and it's just for new people that have this particular type of profile. You can now set up templates and you don't have to go set them all up individually, store the templates, and then moving forward, it's very easy to make sure everybody's consistent. So that's in rolling out stage. You should be seeing it hit your tenant sometime here in the near future, hopefully. And then also the manage sharing and access request settings from the site permissions panel. Normally you had to go dig into advanced permissions and find it. I think Adam had talked about that one, where now they're bringing it much more front and center, and it's much easier to look at, access, and people are not going to have to not use it because they can't find it, or it's just not convenient. Now it's going to be a lot more convenient in your face, and people will be able to modify these things. So that's a good thing.
Yep. Awesome. Well, cool. Well, into the launch section. What I want to say about the launch section today is when you look at it, there's a lot of things in it. But quite honestly, when you break it down, it's all about Microsoft Teams, and it's really dividing Microsoft Teams into three categories. It's Microsoft Teams and Enterprise. It's Microsoft Teams and GCC, and then includes GCC, GCC High, and GCC DoD, and it's Microsoft Teams and EDU. And so over the last maybe month or so, we've seen Microsoft Teams launch to GCC High, GCC DoD, GCC. Now we're seeing all the sub features launching to GCC High, DoD, all of those different things. So Atlas mentions, auto updates, focus mode, all of the little features that we already have in Enterprise that didn't launch immediately when Teams launched with Enterprise, but came shortly after. We're now seeing those launch in the GCC environment. Things like, okay, I couldn't talk interoperability between Skype for Business and Teams. That didn't necessarily work on day one when Teams was in enterprise, but it worked shortly after. That same pattern is now happening in GCC. So while we have 3 pages of Teams updates in the launched stage, it's really not any new features. It's GCC High, GCC DoD, and GCC catching up with Teams Enterprise. So that's really where we're at. So if you're in one of those spaces, which many of our customers are, you can rest assured that now all of these things are starting to launch, and you're catching up with that enterprise experience. That was
same with education too.
And with education, and then education's got some extra things that works well for kids: avatars, stickers, some landing pages, different things like that that work well for doing school classrooms and pages and stuff like that. And so that's kind of what's happening.
Right?
You could have stickers, Tom. So those are kind of the things that are happening there. There are some other things I thought, like well, there was one that I saw on here, like auto investigation things are going. Yeah. So I thought you could talk about those. Safe links are coming. So there are still some things coming to enterprise Teams, but Teams is just doing a fantastic job of continuing to roll things out. But that's why it looks like there's so much. So don't be overwhelmed by the launch and think, oh my gosh, 1 million new features came out. They really didn't. We're playing catch up, but that's the exact process by which things are said to have rolled out. So what they said would happen all along is happening now, and we're seeing it. So that's a good thing. But that's kind of what's going on here. So if you're in the education, GCC High, DoD space, this is a good week for you. This is it's like, all right, good. I like it. So guys, you can add to that. I didn't mean to steal everyone's thunder.
No, that made a lot of sense. I'm looking forward to seeing Adam talking about synchronous URL detonation. That just sounds so awesome.
So this actually is a cool one. You say, and Jess. Yeah. So if you have safe links for Office 365, there's always the debate, and trust me, I've had this 1,000 times. Do you want to scan the email and make sure it's safe and then deliver it to your user, or deliver it to your user and scan the link whenever they click on it? And I tell you, like, you think you know the right answer, but like, trust me, you're like, oh, no, it should be safe before it goes to the user. Then the moment one of your C-level staff gets an email and someone calls, it's like, hey, I sent you an email, and they don't have that email, like, this setting's getting changed. And so, like, basically what comes down to is the ability to impact this. It's basically you get to decide, do you want to make sure the email and all the links are safe before you deliver it to your users, or do you want to give them a message when they click on the link like, hold on, we're looking at the link for you? The synchronous URL detonation in Office 365 is specifically referring to that first case, where if you want to wait and make sure it's safe before you deliver it to your users, you can. That sounds wonderful in practice, but I'm telling you, from actually someone who's deployed this about 12 times, that does not stay for anyone, because like I said, the moment some VIP doesn't get an email when he expects, and this is 2019 and we're in the cloud, why don't I have my email? Like, you're going to end up changing that setting. So
I love it.
I love it. Tom, anything we missed over going on in that space, in the launch space?
Yeah, the only 2 things that I saw that, once again, we've talked about them in the past. I've done tips on them and had them in our, Office Productivity Tips Showdown with Christian, is the priority notifications, where you can irritate people to no end by saying this is priority, and it will ping them every 2 minutes. Yay! That is now rolled out. Be on the lookout for that one. And then there's also the channel moderation, which means that you can now, you can now set, especially in large channels, you can say, okay, I've got this channel that maybe has 500 people in it, but I really want it to be kind of a one-to-many type arrangement for notifying people in the general channels, things like that. You can list moderators and say, okay, only these people can create new posts and control whether or not people can reply to those particular posts. So that's now in a launch status. So you should be seeing that in your Teams clients too. So keep an eye open for those 2.
We can end with a pat on the back to Microsoft. One other thing listed in there that I think we might have even mentioned in the past, but always happy to see this. I think all three of us always are. They announced that they're adding the ability to create custom phishing alerts to
Yeah.
ATP P1, which is the lower quality or the lower level of pricing. This has existed for a long time in P2, or if you had E5 licensing, which would come with P2. But
It's not lower quality. It's
No, not
lower
lower-
feature.
lower features. But I think
Yeah,
across
that's not
the
spammy
board,
enough. We'll let it go.
I think across the board, all of us will always embrace robust feature sets being taken
Yeah.
to a lower price point, made more available to people. So we'll end with a little pat on the back to Microsoft of it's nice to see this go into any users who have ATP, not just the ones who have the premium licensing behind it. So happy to see that.
And I'll
Sweet.
also mention.
Oh, go ahead.
I was also going to mention that there's one on here that's rolled out that I'm now finding myself using a lot, and that is the Microsoft Teams focus mode. So if you actually set focus mode on your calendar using the My Analytics tab or something like that, it actually changes your presence in Teams to be focusing, and it blocks out any notifications and stuff like that unless they're people that you've allowed to get past that. I think that is really cool because with the migration we're in the middle of right now, especially Monday.
Focus.
Oh yeah, especially Mondays after we do our migration weekend stuff, you feel like a 911 operator because it was like, "Hi, oh God, what is going on?" It's like, "Hi, how may we help you? How may we take your call?" Just being able to say no, I want
Yeah.
this 2-hour block of time, and I don't want people pinging me. The focus mode's really cool, and that's now launched to the client. So you should investigate that one if you need to block out these 2-hour chunks to say, "Leave me alone. I need to focus on something."
Awesome. Well, cool. Moving on down to canceled. Nothing has canceled this week, so this section's real easy this week. So cool. Well, all right. Well, those are the updates for this week. We'll be back next week with more updates. So everybody, it was great chatting with you this week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Hi, everyone.